All right, welcome, gentle viewers, or if you prefer, genteel viewers, to Mazecast episode 8. Joined by Beals and Alex tonight,
And the Hoopoe Bird.
and the Hoopoo Bird. We couldn't figure out how to broadcast in black and white. If you could do us a favor and maybe pause this video now and change the settings on your monitor so that you're seeing us in black and white, it might improve your Hoopoo Bird experience tonight.
Hoopoe Vision.
Yeah. We're going to be going a little outside the Maze book itself tonight, and we're going to be doing an episode essentially about the Maze community. And I guess we'll probably be burning some bridges here. Anyone who's unfortunate enough not to be part of this hangout, we're just going to toss you under any bus we can find. No, I don't think it's going to be overwhelmingly negative. I don't know that it's going to be negative at all. I think we're going to have a lot of good things to say about people. You know, early on in this podcast series, I talked a lot of shit about David Gentile. 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 Dave. I said impolite things about him, and boy, he's just such a nice guy. He's part of the gang, and I like talking to him and hang out, and we still disagree about 98% of all solutions that are suggested, and I think that most of what he says is absolutely crazy, but in terms of talking about people of the Maze community, I'm glad to have Dave in the community. And like I've always said, along with the stuff that I think is just batshit crazy, he's got tons of great observations that he makes, and I think he probably has more credited, puzzle points on Into the Abyss than anybody else.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll be, for some reason, dissecting, just taking a look at where we've come from and where we're going to go with the Maze community. And we'll see how that works. I wanted to start by talking about Into the Abyss, which is essentially where all this stuff started. As we said from the beginning, we're in what we're calling we calling this the second resurgence? Yeah, the second resurgence, which was started by Into the Abyss, and we've talked here and there a little bit about problems that people have with Into the Abyss or with White Raven a little bit, and I've said laudatory things, I think, but we'll get a little more in depth into it here, maybe. And actually, I wrote out a list of questions that we could talk about here, and even the list of questions, when I look at it, just seems so inflammatory. Like, I've written down these questions. I've got, oh man, the first.
Like, are we okay with accepting these dumb solutions?
Yeah, well, I said, are White Raven solutions wrong, or does the book really just have a lot of dumb solutions? I think that's, oh man. And then, second
I think it definitely takes a certain personality type to be into this kind of stuff. Not necessarily an organized one, although you see, all of us, we seem to have a very nitpicky minds in terms of scrutinization, but we don't seem like, the most organized bunch of people. I mean, White Raven himself said that, he can't remember shit, and it doesn't seem like a personality trait that a mazer would have. But
that is the exact quote from White Raven.
It works.
Remember shit is what he said.
Yeah. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I interrupted you. I just wanted to joke about that being an exact quote. Probably wasn't worth it. Okay. Well, let's talk about that first question because it seems more disrespectful than I intended it. But I don't think we made
it in more of a lawyerly way.
Yeah.
You gotta be able to put it in more of a legally neutral.
Well, no, I think we can preface by saying that we're not hating on anybody. We're not criticizing for the sake of debunking anything. We're just sort of going over in the most sort of professional, objective way possible the pros and cons of how people's personalities could alter the perception of the maze and riddle solving, I think.
I think that's a fair thing to say, because you certainly have a lot of different approaches to the maze, and yeah, people's, my sort of inherent skepticism and cynicism causes me to not believe that anything is really part of the solution, and Dave has a pretty high tolerance for eccentric solutions. But I guess what I'm like, I think most of us, if we went through like into the abyss and we started looking into some of the room solutions, like we just keep, we would be constantly hitting things where we like roll our eyes and say, oh come on, that's not a solution, that's ridiculous. Oh, that's silly. Although a lot of times when I do that, I'll say that and then I'll come back and look at it later and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that is what's going on. It's just that I think it's a bad solution, so I don't like it up front. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, I mean, do you think, let's say we stick with it and we get everything, eventually at some point, not anytime soon, all the puzzle points are given and we've got all these answers. Do you think we're going to look back and say that these were good puzzles and, we're glad we solved it, or is it going to be like, boy, that was some, I can't believe we were looking for all those needles and eyes?
Personally, I don't think we're ever gonna have that moment, just because in my experience, what we've done in the past is you get stuff like Room 34, where it's completely anticlimactic, and we're all like, "What? That can't be it," and sadly, it is. So I think it's gonna be mixed. There's been a variety of success and the senses of success in various rooms. Like I think we did a lot better at 34, even though we were disappointed, than say room 24, which was, it's sort of still, I'm still not, like I feel like we like our solutions were more solid, but at the same time I don't think we got as far as we did with 34, even though it was less satisfying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the way I don't know. But when I look at like the rooms that have gotten 5-star points, or they're completely puzzle pointed out on Into the Abyss, I mean they seem relatively solid to me. Like I don't look at those 5-point rooms and say that it's just a bunch of ridiculous garbage, And so I sort of suspect that with these other rooms there may be good things going on, and we just, White Raven doesn't tell us what we don't or haven't already found. So it could very well be that there's still good stuff out there for all these other rooms. It's not that the rooms all have bad solutions. It's that's the stuff we're giving them. We're the ones who are counting legs on the furniture and are, finding things that.
Well, hold on a second here. Now that you brought that up, I'm looking at his page called Rooms by Completion, and I'm looking at the Solvo meter, the one's at 0, and he's got room 13 as 0. I definitely don't think that we're at 0 with that room. Like, we were even talking about that today a bit, and we've got some pretty decent, I think we were satisfied with a bunch of stuff we came up with.
He's actually got the solve meter at 2 on the actual page. I think that might just be anything.
Oh, yeah, so I guess he's, like, updated it, but he never updated the other page. That's another flaw of the website.
If you look at the top, this was last updated on July 20th.
Right.
So it's a few weeks behind.
And I don't even really agree with the solution that he posted there, the one that Gentile posted, 7 plus 18 equals 25. I think us, the rest of us, I think we came up with better solutions than that. Not to say that Gentile's was wrong, but I still think we came up with some good shit that he hasn't listed here. Maybe he forgot it. Like I was saying before, the White Raven seems like a forgetful guy. I even brought up that I had posted some stuff that I thought I was satisfied with, and he was like, "Oh yeah, which ones?" Just post it again, and I was like, couldn't be bothered really. But what do you guys think? Like room 13. I hate to like change this conversation to a specific room, but what do you guys think? Like I think we've got some good shit there.
Well, I would note. Wait. Why don't we let Andrew say like 2 words?
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry, about what?
Room 13. He's saying, do you think we've got anything good in room 13?
You know what? I'll defer because I'm way behind on room 13. I'm not. I would have to review what you guys have cracked already.
I don't know if you would. We haven't really come up with anything new in the last couple of weeks.
Um, I'll say this.
The one thing I will say is that I do think that concerning the it's so easy to nitpick. What I will say concerning the what David Gentile, I'm sorry, already has is that I do think that getting the 18 out of the clock thought it was 6 in the evening. I kind of like that, but I don't really like just pulling a 7 out for Saturday. That feels sort of arbitrary. If there were a better 7 in the room, then I would be more satisfied with that solution.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm even more satisfied with the 6 in the evening being 18 o'clock, even though it's wrong. It's a solve of a sort of mini puzzle that gets you to a wrong door. But at the same time, it's more solid than the +7. It's like
If you
I
could,
don't know. I just don't.
the thing about that is that you would have to both prove that there's a 7 in there that you're supposed to. Um, you'd have
Yeah,
to
like end of the week. I don't think that automatically.
in there that you have to add to get 25, and you also have to prove that there isn't any 9 in there, so you would know not to add it and get 27. And so it makes me wonder if maybe this isn't supposed to be an addition thing, and maybe it's just I thought it was 6 in the evening, but the clock was wrong by implication. Therefore, avoid 18. That could be all there is to it. We might not be supposed to add it to anything. There might be 25 in some other way. I think that's a little bit simpler and a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah.
It's already been mentioned. It's probably already been mentioned on the page. That's probably not my own original idea, but I think I like having that just be a clue pointing away from 18 more.
Right.
Although, I mean, I think this is
wrong.
I think this is a good example of the kind of thing that I was talking about, where I mean, so what Raven says is he says that solution's correct, bumping it up 2 points, but then he notes it's a stronger solution than it would first appear. There are several aspects supporting this riddle.
Mm-hmm.
So he's acknowledging there, okay, this looks kind of stupid right now. He didn't say he doesn't go that far, but I think he's probably well aware that, okay, this looks totally arbitrary and dumb right now, but there's something else in the room that's supporting this riddle. And the question is, okay, when we find that, is it all going to click into place? Are we going to say, oh, great, yeah, that makes sense, here's what the room's about? Or is it going to be, something kind of silly?
Well, I think that there's sort of a blurred line at this point in time between the stuff that he gave and was approved by Manson and solutions that he thinks are correct, but he didn't submit to Manson. So, for example, it seems like this one wasn't something that he came up with, even though he credited himself. Like, I don't know, who knows? But you see what I'm saying? There's like a blur between. We don't know what he confirmed with Manson. We don't know what he didn't. So maybe we like you, me, Andrew, Gentile, everybody else has come up with that he's convinced of, but he never talked to Manson about. So I think that those lines are blurred with the solvo meter, in the sense that they might or might not have been confirmed with Manson before he agreed with them.
I don't get the impression that very much was confirmed with Manson, so I kind of assume that things weren't, unless he says that they were. But I mean, independent of whether it's been confirmed with Manson, I mean, a good solution, and I know we've started disagreeing a lot on what good solutions are, but generally speaking, a good solution doesn't leave you seeking confirmation from Manson as to whether that's what he intended or not. If you hear the solution and you say, gee, I don't know about that, I'd like to hear what Manson has to say, that's not a good solution.
Agreed.
But I think, if you look at the 5-star rooms we've got, do you see any of those where you think it's totally bogus? I mean, the problem is the number of 5-star rooms we have is kind of misleading, because it's like a bunch of rooms in the trap, and then it's like 12 and 28, which there's really not that much to, So
the only one I'm really satisfied with is room 1. I think that's a 5-star
You're
room.
not satisfied with the deja vu rooms? I think the deja vu rooms are pretty solid.
No, I'm not, because Vince came up with something about there being basically a poster that looks like the outside of the room, and
Oh,
Raven was like, nah, that's not it. But I side with Vince on this one. I think it does look like it's a optical illusion slash, like it's not a real outside. It looks like a poster or something.
yeah, I think White
And
Raven said
Raven
that
was
it
like,
looks like
nah.
I don't agree. Yeah, I also think it looks like a screen sometimes.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Is that you can't, like, that's something I would like to get Manson's
Hmm.
opinion on.
Mm, yeah. Although I can see from Manson's point of view why he would never want to do that. Why he never wants to like just open his book, and say, "Yeah, here's what's going on. Here's everything that's going on here," because it really would destroy the mystery of the book. I think there probably is. I mean, I think there's so much going on in the book and so much potentially going on that even if we really did figure out everything there was to figure out, we wouldn't know that we figured out everything there was to figure out. We'd still be looking for stuff, and that's kind of a magical thing. I can see why Manson wouldn't want to step on that. But yeah, it seems like I wish there were maybe like a question system we could work out where maybe like once a year Manson will take one question and give us some feedback on something.
That's funny. Yeah.
But I guess for my personal satisfaction with a room solution, it's not so much everything has to be explained as that it's like sufficiently explained that you understand, what's being clued there. I'm trying to think of something. Well, take room 37 for instance. The solution that I've suggested is different in some ways from what White Raven is accepting because he's not putting it up there. But I'm pretty satisfied that we understand what's going on in that room. There's probably more. I'm sure that White Raven's solution is whatever the missing point is something legit.
Can you, for the benefit of posterity, describe your latest solution that he didn't confirm?
Um, yeah, I wish I had it written down someplace because I think I'd do a better job of it. But in summary, I guess what I think is going on is that you got a whole bunch of clues in the room to 0. Mainly,
Objects?
what's that?
You mean like the top-down objects or other clues?
Right.
Yeah,
Which
like a
is-
top view of the room.
Right.
Which is right, and White Raven's in agreement to that. But what I think is that the dice on the right are cluing towards 20, and the net on the left is cluing towards 10. And so that's why the group ends up divided on which door they want to go through. Why half of them want to go to 10, and half of them want to go to 20. And then when the door rattles, excuse me, and it says that they come together then and all decide on a path to go, that's because the door rattled behind 10. It describes them as moving away from the door, implying that they were frightened by that, and then they choose the path, suggesting that they chose the other path. And so, to me, I think that's a pretty elegant solution that brings the entire room together. It ties the text to the picture. I think that's about as good a solution as we've got for anything.
I was going to say, I think that's probably one of the most elegant solutions that I've heard so far because it's almost irrefutable. Everything you've just said about the door rattling and getting away from choice 1 out of choice 1 and 2, like it's all that's pretty solid. And that's, even though I hate this room, I think that's a really great solution because pretty much everything you said is based on very simple things like the top view, both sides of the room, 2 choices, 1 choice eliminated via the text. Like that's super elegant. And 1 swipe, 1 kill, and going up the ladder.
Yeah, so that's a room where presumably there's something more to find. There's another puzzle point to get, but I'm probably more satisfied with the puzzle solution we've got in 37 than, I don't know, take your pick of whatever of the 5-star stuff there. I don't know. Or
Well, wait a
Room
second.
4, for instance. Room 4, I feel like we
Room
just
4 is just all over the place.
Room 4.
How can you know that you're done with Room 4 when there's just so much that could be?
It was a painful process. I remember that's probably the most memorable process that I remember. It was me, Vince, I think. Who else was there? I think Ben was there as well. And we sort of just like we were chatting on Hangouts, and we sort of said like one sentence at a time. I was like, "Hey, look, the hatchet is in front of both right doors," and then like Vince, like he flowed into the process, and he said the next thing. I can't remember what he said, but he found out. I believe it was the sort of time elapsation, like the candle hasn't been lit yet, but the wood has been chopped, and like all that type of stuff. So it was. I think that was the best process, Room 4, because we like really collaborated to bang stuff out. And yeah, maybe it's not the total. Like Raven said, it wasn't the solution. Like we're sort of getting there or whatever. But I'm pretty satisfied with that as process was involved.
Yeah, that was fun, and that's something that happened sort of towards the beginning of this, and I think that's the kind of thing that really solidified our maze obsession is something that was going to continue on. Although I say that, at that point we'd already started doing a podcast and had a Google Hangout, so I guess we were already pretty deep. But that's the kind of excitement you want out of your extremely nerdy hobby.
No, absolutely. No, it was a defining moment for us, I think.
Yeah. And I think that stuff's good, but I feel like there's got to be something going on with the face. There's stuff going on with the cat that we don't know about. You know what I mean? Like,
so
we don't know what the text is all about.
Sorry?
Whoops, I missed what you said there.
Oh, there's door 24 opening.
No, I missed what you said.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying like that's like to your point, like that's why the salvo meters should. I say we do a tolerance of 1, meaning like remove 1 or add 1 based on your own personal judgment, because I don't think 4 is done. There's still the foolish face on the door. There's still the stars. We don't know anything about that yet. Or at least,
I mean, unless the riddle of the guide stuff.
Yeah, possible.
Which is something, kind of changing the subject, or at least going off on a slightly different tangent. But see, that's, I have moments of doubt. I think we got to come back to White Raven solved the riddle of the guide. No one ever solved, or will ever solve, the riddle of the maze in room 45, right? I mean, the solution's out there. No one's ever going to. I mean, who knows whether it would ever have been solvable anyway.
Just the bad grammar thing gets me.
Well, it would have been really tough regardless, but no one's ever going to solve that, and the solution, was arrived at because additional clues were given. So it seems like the riddle of the guide is the closest we can get to a testing ground to see, all right, if people really applied themselves, can they solve maze, it seems like that'd be the closest thing out there to the riddles that people had to solve to win the contest that they were given additional assistance with from the publisher, from Mr. Manson. And, White Raven did it. So it seems like my constant doubts that I have about his solutions, like I have about everybody's solutions, I feel like weighing my doubts against his belief in those solutions, like, despite myself, I think I have to assume that his point of view is more credible because he solved the riddle of the guy.
Well, I think there's a sort of undescribable element of personality that separates you guys in your, I guess, validity of solutions. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be something like a barrier between each and every one of us who does maze. Like, our personal biases are always going to get in the way. I don't know if that's inherent in the maze, or I mean, it must be, right? Because not all of us agree on all of our solutions, so I think everybody's going to have some kind of a bias that changes the continuity of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it might just be that for whatever reason, White Raven's just really kind of in tune with Manson's way of thinking. Maybe not. Maybe he had to discover the way of thinking and adapt to it, or maybe there was something about him from the get-go that helped him see things Manson's way a little better. We're
Maybe
not.
hmm?
Sorry, what?
Maybe he's his son.
Yeah, whenever he talks about getting confirmation from Manson, he's just like screaming in the next room. Hey,
Is the pizza here yet?
and what's going on in room 17? Shoot, I forget what I was going to say.
Well, we're talking about White Raven.
Yeah, I know. I know what the general subject of the podcast is. The specific comment that I was going to make. Well, in one of the first conversations I ever had with White Raven, I said right off the bat that I know I'm not going to be the person who solves all these rooms and mazes, and I never would have done it on my own. And if I split off now and worked on it by myself for 10 years, I know I'm not going to solve all this stuff. And I think that's probably true of most people because a lot of very intelligent people came together and worked on Maze and came away without very much over a period of many years. So I do think that White Raven has done something without precedent in regard to Maze, regardless of whether some of his solutions are kind of screwy or not. And I think it's easy to forget that for some reason. I don't know why it's so easy to forget it, but
Because
I think
it's a personality thing.
you mean like, oh, you just mean the same personality thing you're talking about how
Well,
credible.
overlapping with what you said too about how he might be more like his personality type is more like Manson, so he thinks like him more.
Maybe, yeah. I mean that could explain it. But in any case, yeah, I'm doing a better job now. I think of reminding myself when I read something that I think is silly. It's like he solved the riddle of the guide. I just give him a little rope here, okay?
I don't want to discredit White Raven, but on what authority do we know that he did in fact confirm the guides of the lane?
I've
That's
asked
an
that
ex-
myself.
I'm not saying he would just lie to us, but I really do kind of want to know how we know that.
That's an excellent question. I think we have a good answer to that. And the answer is not just going to be, well, it sounds like he's telling the truth. Because that's not a very good. I would say, I mean, at the beginning, that is what it was. He said that he had done it. So you believe him or you don't. But here's the thing: we know he's had contact with Manson because he has images from the defunct May sequel, and we know that Gentile has gotten email responses from, or at least one email response from Manson, where Manson told him, "Hey, why don't you post your comments on the Abyss from here on out instead of asking me all these questions?" Because I don't think I'm saying it more impolitely than Manson said it. It was kind of a suggestion that he used the Abyss more than emailing Manson, which I guess I don't see Manson doing those things if White Raven was lying about solving the riddle of the guide and confirming it with Manson. You know what I mean?
Okay, so White Raven has said that he confirmed it with Manson.
Yes.
Okay, that would be a much more damning lie than if he just. I thought it might just be that he had confidence that he had solved it, but who really knows? But no, if he's claimed that he got confirmation from Manson, I believe him.
Yeah, I believe him too. I didn't even know about all that other stuff about having documents from like the sequel to Maze or whatever. But I believe just because there's no reason not to. Like he made the whole website for it, so there's gotta be something there.
You didn't know that he had images from the Maze sequel?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that he has them, I did know. I'm just bringing it up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, I don't just assume people are telling the truth because it sounds like it, but yeah, I'd agree that the particular claims that he's making and the relationship he clearly has with Manson makes it pretty unlikely that he's lying about anything that he's saying about that Maze. So yeah, I don't really question his honesty. And he said that the riddle of the guide is essentially irrefutable. Now, we've come to learn that almost everything is refutable by somebody, but he means it's a pretty solid solution. Like, you're going to look at it and it's going to leave no doubt as to who it's saying the guide is, and no doubt that it was an intended puzzle. And I take him at his word on that too. So I think when it's found, we'll know that it's found, and we'll all be satisfied with it. I'll tell you what I think would be, what I'd really be interested to know from White Raven is how many of the rooms that have not been 5-starred, how many of them he thinks similarly about. Or maybe I shouldn't say not what he thinks, but what he thinks we would think. Like, how many of the rooms does he think are out there that, if we get the solution, that we're going to say, oh, Jesus Christ, what a bunch of bullshit. And how many of them are we going to say, oh, that's brilliant, that's great. Because obviously he can't predict infallibly how we would react to it, but I think he could take a pretty reasonable guess as to how we would react. And I would be interested to know that. You know, he did tell me that I won an award this week, right? The Above and the Beyond award. He said I could redeem it by putting it in the slot in 30. Well, I'm putting it in the slot, and what I'm saying is, can you give us an idea? No specifics, no solutions. Don't even tell us which room is which. But of the remaining un-5-starred rooms, how many of them do you think have solutions that we're going to see and we're going to say, oh, that's brilliant, that's great, that's clever, whatever? And how many of them are we going to say, oh, give me a fucking break?
Right. Hey, I think that's a good wager.
That Above and Beyond award is a legally binding agreement, by the way. I do think my reasonable request would hold up in court of law.
Yeah, you should hold him to it.
Well, we'll see. I mean, hopefully he'll just do it politely and without argument, but if we have to litigate, then that's the way we have to do it. I'm not afraid to walk into court. Oh, let me see. Yeah, I think we actually wandered around to all the different questions I had written out, even without my saying them. Oh no, here's a good one for us to discuss. Do you think, given what we've found out about Maze and the kind of riddles we're finding now, do you think that we are better off than when Maze was just this totally mysterious, unsolvable, and beautiful book that we all loved? Do you think that we are actually losing some of our enjoyment of it by dissecting it?
No, I'm enjoying more.
I certainly enjoy the process of what we're doing more. I do kind of feel like if we reach a point where all these rooms are 5-starred, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. I think it kind of depends on how many rooms are counting legs on easels and stuff like that, and how many of them are like room 37 or room 1 or whatever room you like. I didn't mention room 39, but I think room 39, that's one where I got to remind myself, let's give White Raven some credit. Think of what he's accomplished. But man, I think the solution that we all came up with, and that was another great group effort. I mean, that was Gentile and Greg, and I had part of it, and Probably Alex had part of it. For some reason, every time Alex does something, I say that it was Gentile who did it. But,
Yes. Which room?
39, the Cask of Amontillado room.
Oh no, that was all you, buddy. I remember that being all you. It was you and Greg.
Well, it wasn't all. I mean, it started off with Dave.
No, but you were the one who made that connection that the stone things in the corner are real and everything else in the room is fake. Like,
What?
that's basically what it comes down to, right? Is it's like, how do you get to the core? Because the shit in the corner is real and the rest of the stuff is empty/fake.
Yeah, I mean, there were the emptiness clues. There's the division. I mean, I guess Andrew was right before. We shouldn't just reference these things and then move away from them. But I guess, but to summarize it without going into a huge amount of detail, I think the nuance that was added by Greg I find very convincing, which is that the room is in the text divided into 3 categories of objects, because it says it's a combination wine cellar and junk room, and someone had been working there as well. And the junk, all the stuff that doesn't seem to have anything to do with being a wine cellar or with the work that's being done, all seems to contain false clues to 11 and 12. And then the winery stuff does as well. We've got bottles seeming to clue to 11 by the way they're pointing, and barrel towards 12. But then there's also the bottles are empty, and there's one barrel that has its lid off, and you can see that it's empty. And then the one barrel that's leaning towards 12, just the way that it's balanced there suggests that it couldn't be. It has to be empty.
Yeah.
And
and the other one was the non-mention of 4 in the timetable charts.
Right. Yeah, and actually, right where the numeral 4 would show up, in 7 times 7 equals 49, you've got that tube covering up the 4, so you don't actually get to see 4 on the times table. So anyway, but then you've got the trowel pointing towards 4, and the trowel is, of course, associated with the work that's being done there, not with the wine cellar, not with the junk room, and that's your true clue as to where to go. And the thing is that.
Well, so in synopsis, in other words, this was another elegant solution that I think we can all agree on. Because I certainly do. I think that's correct. Like, almost level, not as triumphant as the cones and the ladder and that stuff, but definitely up there.
Yeah, I really like this.
I'd give this a 5-star.
But again, it's another one where, how does it compare to White Ravens? We don't know until all his puzzle points have gone. Although I would say this about it, he interprets essentially the same clues to get to the same result, but he interprets them in a different way. So even if his interpretation is a bad one, it wouldn't inhibit him from solving the room and then eventually solving the riddle of the guide. You know what I mean? Like,
consider this. There's a certain amount of clues that Manson did mean, and there's a certain amount of clues that he didn't. And I think there's going to be an overlap. Like, there's going to be some people who hit Manson's actual clues, but the whole nature of this book is that you're looking for clues that might or might not be there, right? So it's almost like even if the clue isn't there, but it still leads you in the right direction, you're going to be convinced of it. I know I am. I've fooled myself into believing a lot of shit that he probably never even considered. Just
right. And and something to mention in regard to White Raven solutions that we don't like, and to reiterate again that I'm certainly not trying to shit on White Raven. If any one of us took rooms and started writing down everything that we thought was legit in the room, and then we started a website where we said, we think we've solved the rooms to our satisfaction, and come to my website, and if you get the right answer, then I'll let you know.
Let's all start websites.
Well, I think we would all it would be worse than White Raven, you know. My website would have like just no solutions on it, and if anyone posted on it, I would tell them that they're wrong and their solution is stupid. Um, you know, Dave, we know what his website would look like because he has his website, and we think that most of that stuff's crazy. And I'd say that you and Greg are in the middle there. I'd say Greg is more accepting of stuff than you are. But from both of you, I think that we've seen in the last few weeks that both of you buy stuff that I think is crazy, that each other think is crazy. You buy some of my stuff that he thinks is crazy.
I buy mostly your stuff because you're pretty critical of things. I buy some of his stuff. I don't know. You know me. I like those tier 1s. I don't like that tier 2, tier 3 like out there like, oh, this means this, and it also means that like I'm not into that. I'm like, well, you know, it's a subversive clue, but not in a very complicated way. Like I think 39. That's the one with the cone in it, right?
No, 37.
Sorry, 37. That one, like, it's still pretty simple just to think top view. You know what I mean? Like that's basically one concept, and it gets you the whole puzzle for that room.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that I like because they're clean, and the same with the cask. It's like, well, it's all based on the cask. What was the story about? Well, what actually happened in this story, the masonry part? What were they just walking past but never actually like did anything? The wine and stuff, because it was a cellar, right? I don't think it was a catacomb.
Well, I don't remember whether they call it a catacomb, but it was like that. I mean, it was like a family crypt. They had dead people in there, and it was a long passage, and it wasn't just like he took them into the basement and walled them up. It was kind of maze-like.
Yeah. I'm sure there were barrels though in the original story. Or cellar type stuff, bottles or wine or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like one problem with the solution we've got, if it's a problem, is that the Cask of Amontillado reference becomes interesting but unnecessary. But I don't consider that too much of a problem. I mean, it's a theme he used to create the room and then create a puzzle within the room. It just essentially means that you don't get punished for not getting the reference. And I think that's a perfect way to look at it.
Still possibly feed into the riddle of the guide somehow.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But I think that's fine too if it's just a flavorful way to bring the whole puzzle together. But it could also.
I think some of the rooms just seem like that. Like he wanted to make a room about something and he did it and worked a puzzle into it. Not that he came up with a puzzle first and then I don't know. But while we're talking about 39, I want to read White Raven's solution that uses essentially the same clues to arrive at the result, but that I don't like. And he says, he's talking about the Cask of Amontillado stuff, et cetera, et cetera. He says, the trowel points to the correct door, indicating the door Montresor left by. Montresor is the character in the story, of course, who traps Fortunato in the catacomb cell or whatever.
That's irrelevant. That's totally irrelevant to the maze. Indicated the door Montresor left by. Who gives a shit? No, seriously. That's if he completely omitted that part of the sentence, it would still make 100% sense in the context of the Cask of Amontillado.
I'm getting there, man.
Shit, sorry, bro. All right, do it.
Sorry, I'm always so slow and contemplative, even when I'm reading something that someone else. Okay, so he says that. He says, while a tilted wine barrel leads toward one incorrect door, and a wine bottle points to the other incorrect door. Poor Fortunato is both tipsy and lured to his doom by wine. So the suggestion is because the wine things are related to what led Fortunato to his doom, but the trowel is related to Montresor, who, escaped and got away. The trowel is what we want to take, and the wine is what we don't want to take. The problem I have with that is, yeah, the wine did lead to Fortunato's downfall. So did the trowel. It was to brick him up. And it's not like the wine wasn't handled and used by Montresor in the same way. I mean, he gave wine to Fortunato while they were going down there to get Fortunato drunk, so that he wouldn't be able to react and escape from what was happening, you know. So I don't feel like the wine and the trowel are really meaningfully distinguishable in that regard. To say like the wine's what did Fortunato in, but the trowel is Montresor's thing. So we want to be Montresor, not Fortunato.
Well, I would say that you can. I mean, you can say that the trowel. I mean, if you want to associate the trowel with Montresor, you can, because that wouldn't have an association with Fortunato. But I see what you mean about the wine potentially going both ways.
Yeah, I mean I just don't think that that's a very solid way to interpret those clues, and it seems like the interpretation that doesn't require any reference to the Cask of Amontillado seems more solid to me. But they're not like mutually exclusive either. I mean, they could both be true. And the thing is, again, he says this is an incomplete solution, so maybe there's something more caught between the story and these things that we're missing that would get us where we want to go.
Oh, I would say so. The bird, the tree.
Well, I think the tree is just all the garbage things are things that start with T, because you got the tag and the tree and the tire and the
Trowel.
And a toy. Well, trowel's tricky because it does start with a T, and so you might think of it grouped in with the trash, but that's why it's important that they point out in the text that there's work going on as well. The trowel is not part of the junk in the room. But I think that's deliberate too. I think that's another interesting part of the solution, because the trowel starting with a T seems to tie it in with all the garbage in the room. And on the other hand, the trowel being part of Cask of Amontillado ties it in with the wine-related stuff in the room. But to pick it out as the correct door indicator as opposed to everything else that's pointing at doors, you have to look at it not as, part of those groups, but understand why it's different from the other things in those groups, which I think is a really elegant solution. And I find it.
Here's my feeling on the Cask of Amontillado solution of White Ravens. I would be open to giving it more credence if sort of contingent on the progress that we make in one of my least favorite rooms, which is room 16, which is the room that has the big, I forget his name, but the big giant guy with the. I want to know whether that's part of the. I want to know whether that big hairy giant guy is part of the room solution or what we're supposed to do with him, because I feel like if that classical literary reference is important in some way in guiding you as far as the doors, then I would feel better about the Cask of Amontillado solution being a pointer toward room 4 here in this room. Because we didn't
come up with anything good for 16. Like, we know all the elements. We know the giant is Orson. And Vince came up with some stuff about the feet going in different directions, giving us different clues. But everything else is fairly dead in that room as far as knowledge. Like, we don't know about the gesture head, the contraption, like the trapdoor, the crown, and the weird sensor thing with a polka-dotted fucking clown hat, whatever that is. That's been bugging me. I like this room. That thing, it bugs me. What is that? It's like John Wayne took a shotgun to it. And that was the
Yeah, 16 was not one that immediately stood out to us as being this impossible room. But as we moved through the book, that one seems to be one of the rooms we're most clueless about.
I'll say I'd love to know White Raven's solution for that.
Yeah.
I think that would actually be my one question to Manson if he did the annual question. If my turn came up, I drew the straw. I think I would ask him what the fuck that machine is supposed to do.
Well, what about the sensor? I'm more concerned about the sensor personally. I'm pretty satisfied with my contraption or apparatus, which also has a trap anagram in it.
Yeah, I don't think that machine is a real machine, if I had to guess. It could be
Yeah.
something old and obscure, just like Orson. I mean, Orson, I consider that's a fairly obscure reference to make that
Yeah.
not undiscovered forever. I thought you were going to say if you had one question to ask Manson, you would ask, is identifying that character as Orson um, in,
Important. Yeah.
or part of solving Room 16? And
Being
you,
selected by the fucking machine.
but I think you're right before that that would be very instructive in terms of how we approach other rooms to know,
Whether like they really hinge on these literary references. Yeah.
right, because if we are required to identify that as Orson from, what's it called, Orson and Valentine?
Yeah.
If we were required to identify that as Orson from Orson and Valentine, um, then that opens up a lot of possibilities for other rooms where there might be obscure things that we need to pick up on. Now we know that there are references to things in other rooms can that mean something when you pick up on them. Um, obviously it's a cask of Amontillado room. In room 15, we know that the sacrificial tripod is a reference to the the tripod that the Oracle sat on at Delphi. Um, which do you know what I'm talking about? That with that Beals, have
Yeah.
you?
She always has to tell the truth.
Yeah, I'll play Watson here and ask you to explain that one.
Okay, yeah, this is something we talked about a while ago. Um, there's the tripod in 15 that's referred to as a sacrificial tripod. Um, there's some Greek mythology stuff going on in the room. In Greek mythology, the famous sacrificial tripod was one that the Oracle of Delphi sat on to give prophecies. Okay, well, that stuff alone doesn't mean that what we're talking about there is supposed to be the sacrificial tripod from Delphi. But then there's this statement in the text where the guide says, sometimes I think after all these years that I don't really know myself. Well, one of the famous sayings of the Oracle at Delphi was "Know thyself." It's probably the most famous quote from the Oracle at Delphi, I would guess. "Know thyself" is kind of like the slogan, the motto of the Oracle at Delphi. So the sacrificial tripod in the room with Greco-Roman stuff and the phrase in the text about sometimes I think I don't really know myself, I think makes it pretty clear that it's, the reference here is to the sacrificial tripod of the Oracle of Delphi. Does that figure in any solutions? Not so far. And so that doesn't make it clear, again, do we have to get these references to solve the maze, or are these references just another interesting thing we can pick up along the way? And so far,
Do we need them to solve the maze, or do we need them to solve the riddle of the guide, or are they just right? I can sort of see them being on a different level and being.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point because presumably the guide is going to be some figure from mythology or literature or history, or it's going to be some well-known person.
Yeah.
And it seems perfectly plausible that we need to know something about that person to be able to put the clues together to find it. I mean, it's one thing if the clues come together and spell the person's name, but I hope we're not going to try to do that again because we can't even agree on how we're supposed to spell shoulder on the way out of the maze. Um, but assuming it's not something like that, it's going to be some other aggregation of clues. Presumably, we got to know something about this person to put it together. That was hard to say. Um, there's like Adam and Eve stuff in room 30, which is not necessary to know to get the right solution, I don't think. I mean, it's certainly, if you buy the solution I gave about the number of F's in the text and all that stuff and multiplying that out, then it doesn't matter whether you get the Adam and Eve stuff or not. There's still White Raven's solution that we haven't gotten, but from what he said, it depends on multiplication and on the clock equaling 6. So presumably that doesn't require picking up on Adam and Eve references. Now, Adam and Eve references are a pretty basic part of common culture, I feel. But even that, it seems like you don't really have to know that to solve the room.
I kind of like the solution though, even if you don't do the anagram if no Eve. If you don't use that, and then you've got the male sign pointing to one door,
Mm-hmm.
the female Eve to the other door, and then you have the other door they mentioned, which is too ornate to be the right door. It's the odd man in. You have 42. We're not even looking at the clock for that one.
Yeah, although you're using the ornate door stuff instead of using my tree forbidden fruit from the door.
Okay.
No, but I agree. I mean, that's a case where it seems like some knowledge of biblical mythology is helpful, but not necessary to solving the room. And I would guess that there's, well, I mean, the Argo. No, I guess that's not really a case where it matters whether you know that it's the Argo or not, does it? No, I guess it doesn't matter. You can identify it. Well, yeah, there's presume there's more to find in there, but from what we know,
I'm just comparing him to Orson, right? Like the Argo is a less obscure reference than Orson, in my opinion. Like I think it was a fluke that we found it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if there's something
The
more,
important thing of the Argo is just that it has an eye on it, right? I mean, so you don't even need to...
It's in all of the mythology that the eye is on it. It's even in Jason and the Argonauts, the movie from
So
1963.
for that reason, and you can realize that he picked it for that reason, but you don't actually need to be able to identify it by name or know anything about it in order to just see the eye.
right?
Get that value from it. So maybe it's not quite in the same league as the other things that we're talking about.
Right.
There might be significance to it being Argo. It's got an O in it.
I think it might be helpful in the sense that you're not sitting there saying, why is there an eye on this ship? Is there some kind of fun going on there with an eye boat, you know what I mean? Like if you had no clue why there would ever be an eye on a boat, then I could see that being kind of a perplexing thing. Whereas if you know the Argo had an eye on it, then you might just go, oh, it's the Argo. You picked it because it has an eye on it, just like every other thing in the room has an eye. So yeah, I think it's a case where knowledge can help you, but you don't have to have it. That would be interesting to get an answer from Manson about with regard to Orson in particular, maybe the book in general. How much mythological or religious or whatever knowledge do we need to have? You know, Mr. Manson, if you're watching, feel free to give us a call. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be on the air here, but always would be pleased to receive a call from Mr. Manson.
Well, you can't call it, but leave a comment in the YouTube below.
You're ruining the joke, Alex.
Fuck. Oh, I'm so thick sometimes.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Chris Manson is this podcast. Okay, so I kind of wish that there was more unity behind the Abyss. I mean, the Abyss is obviously still the biggest hub of maze activity going on now, but we know that for whatever reason, people well, maybe that's something to talk about. People get turned off by White Raven's approach to things. And I gotta admit, my first reaction was, this son of a bitch, who does he think he is saying he has all the solutions? This is just total bullshit. And we're gonna...
Let's talk about hidden mystery.
What's that? Oh. Yeah, speaking of people who have all the solutions, Hidden Mystery may be the new rival to White Raven, because in only like 2 days he cracked the maze code. He figured out the path. He knows what it's all about. He knows who the guide and the 3 visitors are. Thale Kreider, man, he's the 4th apostle here. I think actually it makes him the 3rd apostle.
He's an apostate.
Um,
outside the collective. I don't know what he's got. He seems kind of standoffish, though. He's like, yeah, I've got the solution. And then we're like, oh, yeah? Dot, 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 continue.
Yeah, so for the viewers, there's a character who calls himself Hidden Mystery, and I don't know why we're giving this guy publicity. His name is on other websites listed as Thale Kreider. He doesn't. Sometimes he communicates like English is not his first language. And I don't say that to be like a jerk, like, oh, this guy, he doesn't even write like he speaks English. I mean, the combination of his highly unusual name and some of his strange syntax suggests to me that English is not his first language. Maybe that explains some of his awkward interactions with people on the website, but he's given some silly solutions for stuff and claimed to have solved the entire maze. And yeah, I'd be interested to have him like settle down and be like part of the gang and maybe give us some, make some real observations and maybe participate. But instead, he's just announcing that he solved everything. By every indication, he didn't. Why do we bring that up? Oh, because I was talking.
Anyway, no, there's two other users. There's Irene and Kontiki. They're also joined. I don't know if they're going to watch this, but guys, if you're watching this, come join us. We got a little chat group going on, and maybe even come on one of the podcasts.
Right, and then talk trash about people who don't make it there. Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, you can hardly blame people for not reaching the level of obsession that we have, because it's probably a little ridiculous what we're doing, maybe. But I would like to get all these people involved, at least, like, they can be added to the Hangout. They don't have to hang out there all the time, but they can stop by and talk. It'd be nice to get people to stop by for one podcast, Get some new people. Yeah.
Yes, Gentile made it last time.
He did. That was a lot of fun. And at some point, we're going to have to do a podcast where we explain how exactly we escaped from the abyss to be with you here tonight.
Well, not all of us actually made it out, so.
That's true. We're going to have to do an episode where we go back in there and say, Ben and Dave.
Bring a yarn. Bring a spool of yarn.
Well, technically, Vince, you were the only one left in the abyss, because I got cut off before that happened.
All right. We're breaking the fourth wall here a little bit. What happened last week was totally real. Really were subjected to supernatural forces, and I was trapped inside an endless dark void for some period of time. Okay?
Oh, you know what we should talk about? Let's talk about the number of visitors with the guide.
Okay. You're still on your Thale Kreider kick. Yeah, Thale Kreider.
No, I don't know. I like that theory of three, even though, Greg brought up a good point about in the cone room. I always forget the number 37, right?
Oh, did Greg bring up a good point? Was that a good point that Greg called me? Because I think I'm the one who said immediately that 3 visitors doesn't work in room 37, where it said split into 2 groups. Half wanted to go one way and half the other.
Yeah, but he's not referring to the visitors. He's referring to the 2 choices. Or no, I don't know, like, I guess they explained it in some way.
Yeah.
3 visitors is also a little strange in room 1, where it says, well, I mean, you could say this is just him being poetic, but he says, one said another, said a third, which implies that there are more than 3 people. But you could say
but that would give it away. That would give it away too much. If he said the third, then you know for sure.
Yeah, I'm acknowledging that it could be poetic, but.
Well, I'm smiling because I made the exact same argument, I think, just today in the Hangout when I was saying certainly implies that there are more than 3 of them. But it is interesting. You never see more than 3 speaking. Well, see, 35 is kind of ambiguous in that regard. It certainly implies that you got more than 3 speaking because you've got a totem or tribal fetish said 1. It could be a work of art suggested another. Perhaps it's a signal to us, the thoughtful one said. Not much help when there's only one way to go. Put in another.
Oh, that's true. Suggested
Technically,
another. Maybe I don't know. Maybe these words have meaning, like said one. Like it's sort of like who's on first, right? Like one is the guy's name, another is the
yeah,
guy's. You got the
right.
thoughtful one, and then another said it again, right?
Yeah, yeah, it could just be two people, one and another. Um, but I mean, it's certainly suggestive that there are more than three people in that group. Um, okay, we've
I just wanted to beat a dead horse.
no, that's okay. It's an interesting subject anyway. How many people are in this group? And Thale Kreider is suggesting that the group is actually related to the guide in some way. Like you can identify the group, which I'm guessing is probably not true because it's something that Thale Kreider said.
I don't know. That sounds compelling. Find out who the visitors are too. Maybe it's all related. Once you figure out who the guide is, you must know who the visitors are by proxy.
Well, I could see you probably have like maybe a general idea who they are. Like if the guide is someone associated with leading souls through the underworld or something, then you can say, oh, okay, these are dead people. Um, but I don't think they're going to have specific identities.
Let me just point out one more thing. In the deja vu rooms, the last person who speaks is identified as being bolder than the rest, which would also be a kind of a disingenuous phrasing if there were only two other people.
No, well, the bold one is also in room 33.
Well, all I'm saying is that the choice of the word rest seems like it would, once again, it would be very poetic and very deliberately misleading if there were only two.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a suggestion of a larger group here, certainly. But anyway, let me return to the point before we got off on hidden mystery. I'm going to go back to what I was starting to say, which I think will cap off anything I had to say about the abyss. And boy, we've really been going at it here for considering we didn't have a real topic of discussion for tonight. We've really been getting into it. It's just, do you think that White Raven's approach to the site is off-putting to people? I think it's. I don't know. Well, let me not have the first word. Do you think that there's something off-putting about White Raven's approach with the site?
There is, but I don't think that it's avoidable because he's trying to run as fair a democracy as he can, like from based on what he knows and trying to be friendly with us and stuff. I think he's doing the best he can, and just like in every democracy, not everybody's going to be happy all the time.
What do you think, Andrew?
I mean, I can't speak for anybody else in terms of off-putting, and I wouldn't pretend to, but one thing, I mean, if you were watching this, one thing that I would kind of like is if he would be more forthright about deconfirming solutions that people suggested rather than giving the impression that maybe this hadn't got to them yet, because I don't really like, I know that it's been sort of a common complaint that people kind of feel like their solutions just linger on and on without feeling that they were acknowledged, and if that's White Raven's way of saying that's not right, in my opinion. I don't think it would lose any value, and I think the site would gain some practicality if he would come out and say that.
Oh, so if he would respond to suggestions and say, no,
suggestions positively. I wish he would also respond to suggestions negatively. I don't think that that would be a compromise in any way or would devalue the experience in any way. I think it would be a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, well, although it could be kind of burdensome, especially if he's just responding to everything saying, nope, don't buy it, sorry.
Well, yeah,
every once in a while, if more than one person kind of band behind a solution and say, oh, yeah, that's good, and he doesn't buy it, then he will pop in and say, well, I mean, I don't know. For me personally, like I said, my first reaction was, man, fuck that guy. But it was kind of based on two things, I think. Number one, because I didn't like his proposed interpretation of the riddle of the maze, the Woodrow Wilson House stuff. I was just like, this is ridiculous. This is the guy who's claiming the da-da-da-da-da. And so I was pissed off. Number two was almost certainly just pure jealousy of what he accomplished that he had communicated with Christopher Manson, and that I would probably never be in a position to do those things. Now, I would never put in the effort to do those things either, and I was never going to. So it's a pretty half-baked kind of jealousy. It's not like we were competing towards the same goal and he won it. It's more like I forgot about this book for a long time and then came back and saw what he had done. Like, son of a bitch, that should have been me. But once that had wore off, like, I really don't see any problem with it, but, you know, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. Oh, no, let's throw Greg under the bus because he's not here. But, like, Greg, we know, really doesn't like the Abyss. And I think we might have even we've talked about it on the podcast before. It's because he doesn't like White Raven Solutions, and he feels like when we go there and we're posting stuff, we're trying to solve to White Raven, not solve Manson's puzzles.
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Let me just interject there for a second. I should probably clarify that since White Raven seems to be watching these, in episode 6, when I was making a point of not naming the Abyss or White Raven, it was only because, like when I said it was incendiary, I didn't mean anything personally, any personal feelings. It was only because I'd been given to understand that Greg was maybe not so interested in talking about it. So I had to.
Jeez, if you love him so much, why don't you marry him, Andrew?
It's the Fez. I just love the Fez so much.
And I guess we've already covered that. But yeah, there is some truth to that we do end up making a bunch of suggestions towards solutions that we don't really agree with because we're just trying to top off those puzzle points and get to the solutions. Like, oh, well, is it this? Is it you add these things together? Is it the furniture legs? You know, what is it? You know, we just toss stuff out until we get a hit on something. But you know, as much as I can see why that would be objectionable, but on the other hand, I think it's still productive. Even if we're throwing out stuff that we don't personally buy, I think it's a valuable process because other people might. I know that I certainly self-censor to a degree that ends up being harmful because even if you throw out something you think is stupid, and it may be stupid, but part of it might be part of something that's not stupid. And, you know, the interaction between Gentile and I is often like that, where I'll say something that I think, like, I mean, is a joke, and then he'll be like, oh, no, it's not, that really works. Sometimes he'll be giving a solution that I think is totally ridiculous, but they'll be part of it, like, oh, you're right, you know, that is pointing that way, or, you know, this thing really does mean that. So even if we are working towards, you know, throwing out things that we don't personally have a lot of faith in, I think it's still very productive, and I still think it's best for everyone to be in the same place working towards this stuff. You know, the hangout serves a purpose because it's instantaneous, and we can talk, and we're more social than just talking about Mage. You know, we talk to each other all the time, and we have a good time, etc. And we can't do all that stuff in the comment section on the Abyss. But I do wish that everyone were working together on the Abyss.
More fun that way.
Yeah, and I think it's more plausible that everything's going to get solved that way. And it means we're constantly rehashing, you know, well, you know what my solution for room 27 is. What's your solution for room 27? Well, I talked about it 2 weeks ago on the Abyss. Well, did you post it on the wiki? No, I didn't, you know. Not to say we shouldn't work on the wiki, too. But I think the Abyss is probably, I think the Abyss would be a good place for everyone to be, just to throw shit out and see what we can work out. So
yeah, I mean, I just use the Abyss to get White Raven's input because he doesn't post anywhere else, right? So that's I'm not trying to fulfill his solutions. You know, like as I said before, I think there's clues that Manson did mean and those that he didn't mean, and there's a little bit of vary in each person of which ones they're satisfied with.
Yeah, I really do want to get there though. I want to get the puzzle points filled up. Well,
Oh,
I
man.
think more than anything, I think that's going to be an important stepping stone towards then moving to the riddle of the guide.
Yeah.
I really want to solve the riddle of the guide. I feel like that's the last redemption possible for us.
And
Since
even if we don't feel great about some of the room-based, I mean the door-oriented solutions, if we can move past them for the time being, get to the riddle of the guide, and then come back once we sort of know which pictorial clues are supposed to be working for the guide, we can then maybe set those aside and come to more coherent agreement on what we like as room-oriented solutions, basically.
it's a good
I don't know
point.
if that's possible. He said that you got to do the rooms to get the guide ID.
Well, no, I think he's saying even if we think
Now,
even solutions are wrong, he knows what's part of the riddle of the guide and what's not. So if we get his solutions, then we at least know that that stuff involved there is not part of the riddle of the guide.
yeah.
Right.
Although again, that means like we're getting this.
Well, no, actually, what I meant was even further. What I meant is that if we can move past that, if we can max out the puzzle points and move past that, move on to the next level, then we can get the riddle of the guide and then sort of come back, and now we know which elements are pointing to the guide, so we can set them aside, and we can, not having to hew so strictly to the abyss, we can just satisfy ourselves more about what the room-based solutions are once we know which elements don't contribute, or don't necessarily contribute to room-based solutions.
Right, good point. It helps both ways. It helps us get the guide, and then it helps us go back
And
and
sort of
see,
create our steps and
yeah, satisfied. All right. Well, that's what I've got as far as my discussion of the abyss. By the way, even though everything that happened last week is totally real and legit, and all that supernatural stuff really did happen, wouldn't it have been great if this podcast about the abyss had taken place with us still in the abyss? Wouldn't that have been great, Alex? Wouldn't that have been
Yeah.
cool if some jerk ass hadn't said, "Oh"?
Sorry.
Oh, anything else we should address?
if we're going to wrap up, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, anything.
Not introducing a new topic, but rather you asked a question around the middle of the episode, and I wanted to maybe answer it. Wanted to share my own feelings about it. You asked about like how we feel about whether we think that the whole puzzle solving process enhances or detracts from just the essence of our experience with the book. And I just wanted to say that for me personally, I feel like nobody sees the maze as being just completely unsolvable. I mean, everybody solves room one. Everybody notices something here or there, and for me, I don't know. All of that stuff was really frustrating, and I'm really gratified that we're going through this and really finding new meaning in it. And in particular, it's really making me appreciate the book more because when you compare it to The Practical Alchemist, which I know you've, Vince, had experience with, and if anybody doesn't know who's watching this, it's another Manson book, and it's another like big word puzzle. I won't, because it's on the Abyss. I won't explain everything about it, but
A lot easier.
it's yeah. And when I compare the maze to The Practical Alchemist, I just feel like he's got all the clues in The Practical Alchemist. He really works hard to put all those clues in there and put all those false paths in there, and it's great and it's really cool. But they're just not all that artfully thrown together into the pictures. I mean, the pictures are fun, but they're just sort of everything is just sort of slapped in there randomly. You can't really say this room is about this and that room. I mean, this page is about this, that page is about that. They're very haphazard, and so what I mean is, what I'm trying to get back to is that solving all this stuff with the maze has really made me appreciate the artistry more rather than less with which he was able to tie all this stuff together and create these much more visually coherent puzzles that just are not only beautiful but also are a lot more just cleverly threaded through with meaning, I think, than in Practical Alchemist, where they're just all like, boom, here you go, here's all of your clues for this page in one random-ass assortment. So that would be my feeling on it, is that my experience with this is very positive.
I yeah, I mean the focus of that question was I guess it was kind of tied in with the idea of do you think we're going to end up satisfied with the majority of the room solutions or not? I'd certainly say when I look at room 37 and I think of the interpretation we've come up with that makes it all make sense and takes you to the right door, I am certainly, yeah, that room is so much more interesting to me than it was when I had no clue what was going on. Um, and so, yeah, my appreciation for room 37 is a lot higher. My appreciation for room 39 is a lot higher. You know, room 1, the duplicate rooms, whatever. Um, when you've got a good solution for it, then I think we feel good about it. Do you think, I mean, what if we reach the end of this and most of the rooms have solutions that we do think are garbage? Now, I think I promised I was going to stop using needles and eyes as my example of a terrible solution because I kind of made my peace with it and saw it okay. And I think I've already broken that promise like 3 times tonight. But
Well, how many rooms do you think are solidly busted?
What's that?
How many rooms do you think are solidly solved so far?
I mean, without counting them, just approximating, I'd say.
No. Well, okay, including 29. Obviously, those are the 2 no-brainers.
Yeah, like somewhere between like 6 or 7, maybe.
And like obviously 45 as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got rooms in the trap too, which it's hard to know when you've stopped solving them because there's really no good message you can get out. At that point, it's just can you explain why everything's in the room, and you never quite feel done with that because I feel like everything that he says, everything in the text was put there for some reason. There's not really much of an independent story going on with these. Everything is in service to the riddles that are going on. But so leave the trap out of it. Yeah, maybe 5 to 7 rooms that I think we have good solutions on where I look at the solution and I feel like, yeah, that's great. I think that was a really great puzzle you came up with. And then most of them I still feel like I'm missing that. Even the ones that got 4 stars on, I just feel like there's something missing to bring them all together. Like room 15, you know, we've got so many different ways that you can arrive at the right door number out of 15. But there's just not that interpretation that brings everything together the way that you get in, you know, room 37, room 39, room 4 to a degree, although we think more is going on there, you know. So,
The clarity of 29. That one's probably the easiest room in the whole book.
yeah, 39, that's good. Although, I mean, still, did I say 39? 29. 29. Although, still, you want to explain what's going on with the images above the doors, and that takes a little bit of figuring out. I mean, that's figuring out the clues in 39 that are supposed to tell you to find the door to 17 are so much harder than finding the door to 17.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, this book.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of the riddle of the guide. Or was it part of the Atlas phrase?
Oh, what they wrote exactly?
Like the riddle of the maze, or the riddle of the last room.
Well, what part of the room? What part of the room are you talking about?
No, I'm asking you what the signs in the above 29. You're saying like the salt and pepper shaker, and there's some other shit there. Actualizing.
They're just things you turn. There's like
right.
things over.
Just sort of things that flip over.
So was there anything in that room that wasn't upside down related?
Yeah, what was up the pointy scepters? I forget. Were those explained?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, because the blind guy is holding the staff and the doorknob's on top of it, which makes it look like one continuous staff. But then The other snaps in the background reveal that there's actually nothing on top of those cones.
Right. Of course. I missed it. It's edited.
Now, look at this. There are also stripes on the chairs in 29. We know that stripes are ones, and there is a 1 in the correct solution.
Well, his glasses are 0. They look like O's.
No, they're covering up his eyes. If you could see his eyes, those would be zeros.
Guys, if you count all the stripes on the 3 chairs, there are 17 stripes. That's 17 ones.
You didn't count those stripes.
Count those stripes. There are 6 on 2 of them and 5 on one of them.
Oh, you were serious. I assumed you were just making it up.
17 stripes right there.
I'm not going to count it myself. I'll take your word for it.
I just mean the black stripes. I don't mean if you count the black and the white stripes together.
Okay, right.
There are 17 pen strokes in the guy's left shoe.
Oh, man.
Well, let's talk about what we're going to do next time, because it's getting late here.
Oh, you're right, man. This one really kind of got out of control on us, didn't it?
I think it was a good one. I think we talked about a lot of non-related stuff.
Yeah, I think Andrew needs to get a little more involved in the discussions.
Yeah.
Because you're like a funny, witty guy in writing on the Abyss, and then tonight you're just watching me ramble on.
It's not that aggressive. I'm not that verbally aggressive. This guy Alex is pretty verbally.
Okay. What do we want to do for next time? Keep in mind, Greg's going to be back with us, so we got all our Abyss shit out of our systems. We're going to have to go back to calling it the crevasse or whatever.
The chasm.
Yeah.
Anyway. Are we doing a room, or should we do an aspect?
I've got a suggestion for you. I think we should do everything. Oh no, we can't. I was going to make reference to the Abyss again. I was going to say take all the 4-point rooms and say we're going to take this week and we're going to get something knocked up to 5-star. But
we'll just do the rooms and just don't call them 4-star. Just throw them out there and hope that Greg doesn't realize that they're 4-star.
Yeah.
So for next week, we'll be doing 14, 15, 17, 20, 25, 30, 32, 37, and 42. Yeah, we really shouldn't.
That's not ask questions.
We really shouldn't do it that way because we're not going to be able to say something adequate about all those rooms anyway. Let's do it. We'll pick a room.
I see a small black cat in the background.
What?
Small black cat is behind you. He's running down the hallway. Thankfully, the other visitors didn't notice.
Yeah. All right. So, should we do something that we know a lot about, or something we don't know much about at all?
You know what? I don't understand why, if I may refer to the Abyss, I don't understand why we have only 1 point on room 27, the tarot room, because I feel like we've hammered out a lot there. And I'm kind of baffled. It's the Fata Via Vineyard room. Mm-hmm. And why we're still behind on that. I feel like we...
Yeah, I mean, again, if there's a great solution, then maybe that's why not. But yeah, it does seem to me like the statue's shadow is gesturing to the spade.
Yeah.
Take you to the right door. I don't know what else other than that. Yeah, what do we get points for? Oh, just the 13 in front of... Yeah, that doesn't... I mean, then you've got... Okay, so it's a character from a tarot card. You've got all this other card-related stuff, so maybe that would direct you to 13, where you've got the spade and the club and the diamond.
There's also the X111. I don't know if that's legit, but it's there.
I don't see that. Where is it?
Vince pointed out that the wooden blocks that are acting as the scaffolding that are holding up the statue.
Right up front there.
Look at the first one closest to the F, and then the one next to it. It looks sort of like an X, and then there's an I, and then there are 2 I's on the other side of the 9.
Right.
On the right side of the 9.
Got it.
Anyway, he's got a picture of it with a red outline, so he'll probably show you that later. I don't know if it's legit. I think it's cool that Vince found that. I don't know if it's legit, but maybe it is. Like, I guess Raven didn't give us a point for it, so he doesn't think
That's
it's
what they're
important.
for.
I think it's fun. I think it's cool, but yeah, I'm kind of torn on the issue. I don't think it's fully legit.
And I don't think it matters too much either way because that's certainly not that's not the answer of what's going on in the room, you know. So that's the kind of stuff, right? Yeah, take it or leave it. It means something or it doesn't, but that's not the big solution we're looking for. Well, you want to take a run at 27 this week?
I don't know. I just feel like there's got to be something that we're not seeing.
Well, our audience by this point is just getting real frustrated at how many times we've acted like we're going to end the episode and then didn't do it. So let's just say we're going to do room 27 for next week. And are you going to be back with us, Andrew?
I might be. I'd like to be. I mean, for this room, I would like to be. So.
Great. Then you want to present the room?
Sure. All right.
All right. Andrew's going to present for us next week, room 27. Everyone's studying at home. Read up on room 27. Communicate any suggestions you've got for us so we can put it on the show. Mr. Manson, if you're watching, if you want to call us up and give us any pointers. Yeah, that's right, Alex. If he wants to call us up, we'd be appreciative for any input you can give us on the matter. With that, boy, I'm almost afraid to say it, but does anyone have anything else they need to say? God damn it. Anyone have anything else they'd like to say before we go off the air?
Until next time, gentle viewers.
Gentle, genteel, gentile, gentlemen. Yes. Until next time.